I spent months carrying the weight of my parents, my sister, her husband, and their kids. But what I did in response shocked everyone. Let me start from the beginning. Fresh out of college with a degree in business, I found myself right back where I started, under my parents' roof. It wasn't part of the plan. At 25, moving back home had never been on my to-do list. But, like it or not, here I was. Fortunately, the job search didn't drag on for long. Within a week, I secured a position at Nexa Marketing, complete with a solid salary and some promising performance bonuses. That evening, over a plate of my mom's famous meatloaf, I shared the good news. The plan was simple: stay for about 2 months, save up some money, and then find my own place. But the moment I mentioned moving out, the clinking of silverware against plates came to an abrupt stop. My parents exchanged a look, one of those silent conversations they had mastered over the years, the kind that never meant anything good for me. Mom set down her fork first. "Sophie, you know I can only work part-time at the library because of my back problems." Dad cleared his throat. "And things at the plant aren't looking great. There are rumors of layoffs." Mom gave me a soft, almost hesitant look. "We could really use your help with the bills." She let that sink in for a second before adding, "And you wouldn't even have to pay rent here. It just makes more sense, doesn't it?" I stared at my half-eaten salad, a sinking feeling settling in my stomach. They weren't wrong, exactly, and they were my parents after all. How could I say no? So I stayed. Life settled into a steady rhythm. Work, home, bills, dinner. It was fine, manageable, even. Until last weekend, when my sister Olivia showed up with her husband Ethan and their 2 kids, Isabella and Noah. The shift in my parents was instant, like someone had flipped a switch. "Oh, my precious angels," Mom cooed, scooping up 4-year-old Isabella while Dad hoisted Noah onto his shoulders. "Olivia, darling, you look wonderful. How's everything? Tell us everything." Standing in the doorway, I watched as my parents showered Olivia with attention. They hung on her every word, asking about her garden, the new words Noah had learned, how her book club meetings were going, the kind of interest they had never shown in my life. Not when I made the dean's list, not when I won the business school's leadership award. "Sophie, be a dear and put on some coffee," Mom called over her shoulder, not even glancing my way as she bounced Noah on her knee. In the kitchen, I leaned against the counter, listening to the laughter spilling in from the living room. Nothing had changed. It had always been this way. Olivia, 7 years older, had been the shining star of the family while I played a supporting role in the background. I could still see myself at 12, sitting at this very table, proudly holding up my straight-A report card for Mom to see. She barely looked at it before turning back to her conversation with Olivia about college applications. "That's nice, Sophie," she had said absently, waving me off. "Olivia, honey, which universities are your top choices?" Every dinner conversation back then revolved around Olivia, her grades, her extracurriculars, her college plans. I'd sit quietly, eating my peas while Mom and Dad hung on her every word about AP classes and college tours. Things escalated when Olivia got accepted into Westbridge University. I was 11, but I still remember that dinner conversation as if it were yesterday. "We're so proud of you, sweetheart," Mom had said, eyes brimming with tears. "We'll make it work, won't we, James?" Dad had nodded, serious. "We'll take out a student loan. Our Olivia deserves the best." A week after Olivia left for college, they sat me down for a very different conversation. "Sophie," Dad said, his tone heavy, "we need to tighten our belts for a while. The loan payments and Olivia's expenses are a lot." That was when everything changed. While my classmates got new phones every year, I held onto my old flip phone until it fell apart. Shopping for new clothes meant thrift stores, not the mall. Christmas gifts became practical things: socks, school supplies. But no matter how tight money got, they always found a way to send Olivia a check. "Your sister needs to focus on her studies," Mom would say, writing out another payment. "We can't let her stress about money." I got the message loud and clear. By 15, I was signing up for every club, every academic competition I could find. I stayed up late studying, not just to get good grades, but perfect ones. I wrote essay after essay for scholarship competitions until my hands ached, because I knew I had to pay for college myself. And it worked. I earned a full scholarship to State University. I still remember the relief on my parents' faces when I told them. No loans, no out-of-pocket costs. They wouldn't have to spend a dime on me. Meanwhile, Olivia graduated, got a job in Brightstone, and married her college sweetheart, Ethan. Within 1 year, Isabella was born, followed by Noah. My parents were over the moon. Their golden child had built the perfect little family. Every month, the same routine played out. Olivia and Ethan would arrive, and before I could even say hello properly, Olivia was already making plans. "Sophie, you'll watch the kids while we go shopping, right?" she'd ask, as if my answer was already decided. Ethan and I hardly get any alone time these days. The first few times, I tried to suggest that maybe Mom and Dad could watch them instead. "Oh, honey," Mom would say, rubbing her back. "You know how hard it is for me to keep up with young kids, and your father needs his rest on weekends." And so, yet again, I found myself stuck on the couch, watching Rapunzel for the 100th time, while Isabella twirled in front of the TV and Noah tried to color on my bedroom walls. Olivia and Ethan were off at some trendy lunch spot with friends, and Mom and Dad were outside, puttering around in the garden. Every so often, they'd poke their heads in. "Need anything, sweetie?" Like they were doing me a favor. I told myself it was just one weekend a month, just a few hours of free babysitting while everyone else lived their lives. Then a year passed, a full 12 months of juggling bills, work, and unwanted childcare duties. And just as I was getting used to it, almost, everything turned upside down. I was at the sink washing dishes after dinner when I heard Mom's phone ring. From the kitchen, I could hear her voice shift into something soft and concerned. "Olivia? Oh, sweetheart, don't cry. Tell me what happened." Through the muffled sobs, I caught bits and pieces. Ethan's company had gone under. They couldn't pay rent. They had no savings. Could we, could we maybe stay with you for a while?" Olivia's voice blasted through the phone so loudly that I had no trouble hearing every word. "Of course you can," Mom exclaimed without even a second of hesitation. "We'll make room." My stomach dropped. I stepped forward, clearing my throat. If they're moving in, maybe now would be a good time for me to get my own place." You'd have thought I'd just suggested setting the house on fire. Mom gave me a look like I'd completely lost my mind. "Sophie, don't be ridiculous. There's plenty of space for everyone." "But we're family," Dad interrupted firmly. "We stick together when times get tough." By the following weekend, they had arrived with 4 cars packed full of their belongings. I spent my Saturday morning moving all my stuff into what used to be our storage room, now my bedroom. It was the smallest room in the house, barely big enough for a twin bed and a dresser. Meanwhile, my old room, which was twice as big, was turned into the kids' nursery because the children need space to play. And play they did. Isabella, now 4, and 3-year-old Noah treated the entire house like their personal amusement park, racing up and down the hallways, shrieking with laughter. Meanwhile, Olivia either blasted the TV at full volume or spent hours on the phone, loudly venting to her friends about how hard this transition had been for her. "Isabella, Noah, keep it down," I'd call out when they barged into my room for the 10th time, scattering my work papers all over the floor. "They're just playing, Sophie." Olivia would respond dismissively, never once glancing up from her phone. "Don't be such a grouch." After work, all I wanted was to unwind. Maybe read a book or watch something on my laptop. Instead, my evenings were filled with the relentless loop of Baby Shark blasting through the thin walls, the rhythmic pounding of little feet tearing through the house, and Olivia's loud laughter from whatever show she was watching downstairs. Ethan, meanwhile, spent his days job hunting, though most of the time, I'd find him sitting at the table, scrolling through his phone with a deeply furrowed brow. "The job market's brutal right now," he'd say anytime someone asked, "but I'm sure something will come up soon." Every night I lay in my tiny bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to the chaos around me, wondering how I had let myself get trapped in this situation. But every time I thought about bringing up moving out again, I remembered my parents' reaction and kept my mouth shut. Then the first utility bill arrived. Standing in the kitchen, I stared at the numbers on the page, my stomach twisting. The bill had nearly doubled. The water usage had skyrocketed, and electricity and heating costs had shot up too. One glance at my dwindling bank account told me that whatever savings I had for my own place were quickly disappearing. That night at dinner, I decided to say something. "So, about the utility bills," I started, nudging my peas around my plate. "They've doubled since last month. I can't keep covering everything on my own. It's eating up almost my entire paycheck." Olivia's fork hit her plate with a clatter. "Are you seriously complaining about money right now?" she snapped. "When Ethan and I have lost everything?" "I'm not complaining," I said, trying to keep my voice even. "I just think we need to figure out a fair way to—" "I can't believe how selfish you're being," she interrupted, her voice rising. "We're going through the hardest time of our lives, and all you care about is money?" "Olivia's right," Mom chimed in, shaking her head at me. "Family helps family. That's just what we do." Dad nodded solemnly. "Your sister and Ethan need our support right now. This isn't the time to be counting pennies." I swallowed down the words I wanted to say and focused on pushing my food around my plate. "Fine," I muttered. "Never mind." A week later, Ethan finally landed a job at an insurance company. The pay was less than what he'd made before, but at least it was something. I thought maybe, just maybe, things would start getting better. I was wrong. "It's so hard being alone with the kids all day." Olivia started complaining almost immediately. "Ethan leaves at 8 and doesn't get back until 6. I never get a break." And just like that, it began. At first, it was small. "Sophie, could you watch the kids for an hour while I run to the store?" "Sophie, would you mind keeping an eye on them while I take a quick shower?" Before I knew it, these little favors had turned into something much, much bigger. I'd come home from work to find Olivia already dressed up to go out. "Oh, good, you're home," she'd say, grabbing her purse. "Ethan and I are meeting friends for dinner. Isabella and Noah already had their snack, but they'll need dinner in an hour. We'll be back by 10. Weekends became my personal nightmare. On Friday nights, Olivia and Ethan would casually announce their plans: shopping trips, lunch dates, movies, leaving me stuck with the kids for hours. Meanwhile, Mom and Dad conveniently started making more frequent visits to see relatives, usually heading out the door right as Olivia and Ethan were leaving. So there I was, weekend after weekend, struggling to keep Isabella from coloring on the walls while Noah threw a fit because I had cut his sandwich the wrong way. My Saturdays were spent cleaning up toys, making mac and cheese, and sitting through an endless loop of animated movies. By Sunday night, I'd be completely drained. The house would be a disaster, and I'd still be expected to cook dinner for everyone. One evening, after an especially grueling weekend of childcare, I finally found the nerve to bring it up at dinner. I need to talk to you all, I said, setting down my fork. I'm exhausted. This whole childcare situation, it's not working for me. Olivia's head snapped up, eyes narrowing. What do you mean, not working? Are you saying you don't want to spend time with your own nephews? Mom reached over, patting Olivia's hand reassuringly. Don't worry, honey, she said with a smile. This is actually good practice for Sophie. She'll need to learn how to handle kids when she becomes a mother herself someday. Think of it as training. And just like that, the conversation was over. Olivia went right back to talking about her day, Mom and Dad listening intently, Ethan nodding along. I sat there, invisible once again, pushing my food around my plate. Nothing changed. If anything, it got worse. Olivia and Ethan seemed to take my complaint as a challenge, pushing the limits even further. They'd be waiting by the door when I got home from work, keys in hand. We're meeting friends at that new restaurant downtown, they'd say, already halfway out the door. The kids already had a snack. Thanks, Sophie. The weekends became unbearable. I'd wake up every Saturday morning with a sinking feeling in my gut, knowing I'd be stuck watching Paw Patrol and breaking up sibling fights while Olivia and Ethan went out and lived their best lives. And then, one on Thursday, everything changed. I was slouched at my desk at the office, dog-tired but trying to wrestle my brain into focusing on this marketing report when Emilio, my buddy, swung by my cubicle. Hey, you up for something cool this weekend? She tossed out, hopping up to sit on the corner of my desk like it was no big deal. She went on, a bunch of us are hitting Cedar Hill Ski Resort. Nothing fancy, just a quick getaway, heading out Saturday morning and back by Sunday night. She grinned and added, word is, the slopes are prime right now. For the first time in what felt like forever, a little jolt of excitement buzzed through me, cutting through the usual blah. Come Friday night, there I was in my cramped bedroom, stuffing my duffel bag, actually pumped about the weekend ahead. Crazy, right? I just folded my thickest sweater when Olivia popped up in my doorway, leaning against the frame. What's all this? She asked, her eyes zeroing in on my half-packed bag like it was evidence in a crime scene. Getting ready for a ski trip, I shot back, rolling up my thermal socks nice and tight, heading to Cedar Hill with some work pals. Her face went all stormy real quick. You've got to call it off, she said, sharp enough to make me freeze mid-fold. I jerked my head up, thrown by how serious she sounded. Hold up, what? Why the heck would I do that? She crossed her arms tight and said, because Ethan and I are dragging the kids to Aunt Margaret's big 70th bash in Brooks this weekend, and Mom and Dad are tagging along. You need to stick around and watch Isabella and Noah. I couldn't hold it in. I busted out laughing, a real belly laugh, at how ridiculous that sounded. You're kidding me, right? I chuckled, folding my ski pants anyway. You can't honestly think I'm ditching my plans just 'cause you forgot to give me a heads up about yours. Olivia's cheeks flared red. This ain't a joke, Sophie. You're being a total jerk about this. No, what's nuts? I fired back. Is you figuring I'd drop everything last second to play babysitter for you again, like it's my job? Her jaw dropped and she stood there, stammering for a sec before spinning around and stomping off, yelling down the hall, Mom, Dad, Ethan, you won't believe what Sophie's pulling now. I kept packing, hands trembling a little from the anger bubbling up inside. Then came the stampede, footsteps pounding closer until Olivia, Ethan, and my folks crammed into my tiny room, making it feel like the walls were closing in. Mom's face was already locked in that disappointed look I knew too well. She didn't even need to say a word. What's this I hear about you skiing? She demanded, planting her hands on her hips like a drill sergeant. Just what it sounds like, I said, zipping my duffel shut with a satisfying rasp. I'm hitting Cedar Hill with my friends for the weekend. Olivia jumped in, practically shouting, "But you can't! We've got Aunt Margaret's party." I stopped cold, turned to face them, and set her straight. "No, you've got Aunt Margaret's party, not me." I locked eyes with all of them and asked, "Why's this the first I'm hearing about it? How come nobody looped me in on the planning?" Mom shifted, looking uneasy for once, but Olivia swooped in, her tone dripping with that know-it-all attitude. "We all talked it over and figured this was the best setup. Us at the party, you with the kids. It just makes sense." "You all talked it over," I echoed, letting the words hang slow and heavy. "Without me, and just decided how I'd spend my weekend? That's real convenient." Olivia sniffed. "Well, it's not like you can bring little kids to some fancy grown-up party." Aunt Margaret was clear. "No children allowed." I slung my duffel over my shoulder and said, "Sounds like that's your mess to sort out." "They're your kids, Olivia. Deal with it." Ethan finally piped up, frowning like I'd insulted his dog. "What's that supposed to mean?" "Exactly what I said," I replied, cool as could be. "I've got plans. Skiing. Your kids are your gig, not mine. If you can't take 'em, either skip the party or hire a sitter." "A sitter," Olivia screeched, like I'd suggested she rob a bank. "With what cash?" "Not my headache." I shrugged. I turned to face the whole crew, feeling a rush of strength I hadn't tapped in months, maybe years. "Let me lay it out plain. I'm skiing tomorrow. I'm done being your go-to free babysitter whenever it's convenient. I'm sick of my weekends getting jacked, my plans brushed off, and my life treated like it's nothing. If you need someone to watch your kids, Olivia, that's on you as a mom. Quit banking on me to cover for you." The room went dead quiet, like I'd dropped a bomb. They all gawked at me, like I'd started babbling in some alien language. Olivia's mouth flapped open and shut. Fish style? Mom looked like I'd hauled off and smacked her. Dad was halfway to melting into the door frame, and Ethan just stood there with that same dumb look he'd had since his business tanked. The silence didn't last, though. Olivia's face crumpled, and she let loose these big, dramatic sobs, hands over her eyes like a soap opera star. Ethan muttered something under his breath that sounded a lot like, "Ungrateful girl." "How dare you?" Mom's voice climbed, cutting through the noise. "After all we've done for you." "Selfish," Dad added, shaking his head like I'd let him down big time. "Pure selfish." I just stood there, duffel still on my shoulder, letting their words, selfish, ungrateful, inconsiderate, immature, roll over me, each one meant to sting, to shove me back in line. Then Mom went for the kill shot, her voice icy. "If you walk out that door tomorrow, don't bother coming back here. And you know what?" I cracked up, full on, tears in my eyes, laughing. They stared at me like I'd lost it. "You want to know what's hilarious?" I said, wiping my face. "I've been itching to get out of this house for months, but couldn't muster the guts. And now you're handing me the perfect push. So, thanks, Mom." "Get out!" Olivia screamed, her crocodile tears gone, replaced by pure fury. "Just get out. And soon you'll find out what I did that made all my relatives despise me. The truth will shock you." "Happy to," I said, yanking my phone out and dialing Emilio, putting it on speaker just to rub it in. "Hey, Rach. Sorry it's late. Still cool if I crash at your place? Not just after skiing, but maybe a few days." "You bet." Emilio's chipper voice bounced into the room. "Got a spare room? Want to come now?" "That'd be awesome. I'll be there in 35. For the next 10 minutes, I hauled ass, grabbing clothes, papers, whatever I could cram into my car, stuff I actually cared about. They hovered in doorways, watching me lug boxes up and down the stairs, like they couldn't believe I was really doing it. When I'd packed the last one, I strolled into the living room where they'd all huddled up. Oh, one last thing, I said, my voice steady as a rock. Since I'm not living here anymore, I ain't paying squat for bills either. You'll have to figure out how to keep the lights on yourselves. Mom's face went white as a sheet. But, but the utilities, the groceries. Nope, not my circus anymore, I said, throwing my earlier words back at them like a mic drop. I spun on my heel and marched out the front door, tuning out Mom's frantic yells that chased me into the night. The drive to Emile's place? Man, it was this wild mix of my heart pounding and this huge weight lifting off my chest. My phone wouldn't quit buzzing. Angry texts from Olivia blowing up my screen. Mom sending these long-winded guilt trip sagas. Dad chiming in with his gruff, I'm disappointed routine. I didn't even glance at him twice, just let him pile up unread. Come Saturday morning, Emilio and I piled into the car and peeled out for Cedar Hill Resort, right on schedule. For the first time in ages, seriously, it felt like years. I had a weekend that was all mine, doing exactly what I wanted. We shredded the slopes, cracked up over dumb stuff, sipped hot chocolate by a roaring fire, and not once did I have to stress about somebody else's kids or their messes. Sunday night rolled around, we got back, and I flipped open my laptop, hunting for apartments like a man on a mission. With my paycheck finally staying in my pocket instead of propping up my family, I could actually swing a solid place. By Wednesday, I'd locked down this cozy little one-bedroom spot, bright in a decent part of town, just a quick 10-minute cruise from work. That first week in my new digs, it was like I'd forgotten how to breathe easy and was finally figuring it out again. Every morning, I'd wake up to pure, beautiful quiet. No kids hollering, no TV blasting, no heavy sighs from Mom trying to guilt me into something. I could brew my coffee and actually drink it hot, savoring every sip. Evenings were mine to kick back with a book or binge whatever I felt like on HBO. No negotiations. The texts kept coming, though. I couldn't dodge those. I ignored the calls, but I'd still skim the messages, and they were predictable as clockwork. Mom'd write, "How could you just ditch your family like this? We're lost without you." Olivia'd fire off, "You're so full of yourself. The kids keep asking where Aunt Sophie went." Dad'd grumble, "Your mom's a wreck. You need to fix this." It was this endless loop, guilt, rage, finger-pointing, begging. I'd read 'em, but I didn't bite, not a single reply. My silence seemed to twist the knife deeper. They weren't used to me not bending to their pull. After a week of that noise, I was sprawled on my new couch when Mom's number lit up my phone again. This time, I figured I'd pick up. "Sophie, finally!" she snapped, her voice cutting like a blade. "You totally tanked our weekend. Aunt Margaret's party was a mess because of your selfish stunt. Olivia and Ethan couldn't even show since you wouldn't watch the kids." I cut her off, keeping my tone low, but rock solid. "Enough, Mom. Just stop." "I'm done with it," I said, laying it out clear. Done being treated like some live-in maid in my own house. Done having my time, my cash, my whole dang life sucked dry just to make things easy for everybody else. Done playing the family piggy bank and on-call nanny while you all act like I'm invisible. There was this long, heavy pause on her end. Dead air hanging between us. When she came back, her voice switched to that syrupy, coaxing tone I'd heard a million times. "Sweetie, I get it. Things haven't been great, but we're family. You know we need you. The bills this month, we're drowning without your help." "No, Mom," I said flat out. "I'm out. Maybe one day we can sort this out. But it's gotta be fair. No more puppet strings, no more guilt trips, no more seeing me as a cash machine or free daycare. Until then, I'm living my life, and I need room to do it." I hung up, thumb hovering over the screen for half a second before I blocked her number. Then I went full scorched earth, blocked Dad, Olivia, even Ethan, right down the line. Hit 'em all on social media too while I was at it. It was this rush of scary and free all at once, like I'd hacked through ropes I didn't even know were tying me down. Down the road, maybe I'll let my family back in. Could be, with enough time and space, we figure out something fresh, something sane, with lines drawn and respect on both sides. Or maybe that's a pipe dream, and we won't. Either way, I'm not torching my own happiness anymore to keep feeding their bottomless needs.